All right, we're going to see how this works now. Again, what you see on the screen right now, and hopefully what's recording, is on the Mac. So I'm using the microphone on the Mac. For some reason, it's not allowing me to turn up the mic, and it seems a little low. So if I'm talking a little louder than I normally am, that's why. All right, I'll try to fix that during the break. But what I'm going to do is, this is going to be interesting. You don't even know this, John, but I'm running whatever we used last year. I'm running that version of Swift and that version of the operating system. So I haven't upgraded because I had problems remembering my frigging password. All right, I've got that fixed. Now I've got to fix the rest of it. So when I go home, unless you want to do it today, that'd be fine too. But I've got to go and upload the newest version of everything on here. That really and truly should not matter because we're doing a Hello World program. All right, so for that reason, it really and truly should not matter. So, but I want to make sure that I get back up to the point where you were last time. Because remember, we started to go over this, and when we did, I was just using the regular non-Mac machine for the taping. So if you were not here last time, if you have not done anything with a Mac, then you will want to follow along with me till we get to a certain point. And if you were here last time and you started that program, then just maybe you can listen or just tune me out. All right? So, this is from a book that I considered having us use. All right, I do have to make a decision. I think it's due by the end of this week. Now, what I heard from people, and again, I can bring that book down, but what I heard from people was that bigger book that I showed you, that hard copy one, more people than not seem to actually like that. It's very comprehensive. That's the good news. There's 101 chapters in it. That's the bad news. Of course, we'd never cover 101 chapters, but I see no reason why we couldn't cover at least half of the ones in there, because the book itself is a little over 700 pages long, and that means you'll do the math. Each chapter averages 7 to 10 pages. I think the biggest one I saw was about 15 pages. All right, I'll bring that down during the break if you want to take a look at it. It's actually outdated. I got it about a month ago, and a new version came out since then. And I was thinking about this. Maybe I mentioned this to you the other day. I don't know. But when I was in St. Louis with my wife, she always loves to go to the St. Louis Mills Outlet Mall. And they've got one of those BAM things, those Books A Million. Everybody see those? That's the old whatever clothes, Borders or whatever it is, that's them. Every time I go in there, the amount of IT books they have shrinks. So where's the point now? Literally, it's about as big as the desk here, about that wide. And it's 2 shelves. And literally 100% of what's out there are Excel, Access, Word. There are no programming books there at all, which just surprised me, kind of freaked me out. But I started to think of why that could be. And this is a perfect example of it. I got this from Amazon. It would have been really nice if they would have put a message out there that would have said, new edition coming out next week. But they didn't say that. So I've got the one for iOS 8, where now the one for iOS 9 is out there. The one for iOS 8 that I have, it's almost the same book, but it's 98 chapters, and the new one is 101 chapters. All right, so they've done a little bit of updating and upgrading to it, but I'll bring that during the break. And the same author of that book has got another one that he wrote for Android. I actually like that one. I paged through that book in more depth than I have this one. It's only 500 pages. And probably the first 10 to 25% is a primer to get you started with Android Studio. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but that's what we're going to be using next semester in that class. All right. So this book, this is an online book, and what they give you for free, it's about 20 chapters. They give you the first 5 chapters online. So what I did last time during the last class is I went over chapter 1, and I went over chapter 2, and I went over the appendix. And then we started to go into chapter 3, and we ran out of time. So just so you know, if you care, if you go out to the P drive, you don't have to do this now, of course, but if you do go out to the P drive and you go out to the 10/27/15 in-class folder, all 5 chapters and the appendix are out there. They're saved as Word files. I did not save those as a PDF. All right? Well, unfortunately, this machine can't read Word files. So that's what took me a little longer, because I had to open up chapters 3 and 4, convert them to PDFs, throw them onto the flash drive, put the flash drive in here, and then hope the hell they came up in here. Yeah, they did. All right? So, in Chapter 3, the idea is you write a very simple Hello World program. And the authors say that writing a Hello World program is kind of tradition type of thing. And what this is designed to do, as it says, it gives you an overview of the syntax and structure of Swift. It gives you a basic introduction to the Xcode 7 environment. All right, you'll learn how to compile a program. We did that last time. And it'll get you thinking that programming is fun. Now, you might think, no, I've done it for a while. It ain't fun. But it really and truly is supposed to be fun. All right? So, if you have not done this before, all right, if there's anybody in the room right now who is not up to that point, I take it that everybody's been able to log in. All right? But if you did not start up a project before, what you should see on your dock, which is on the bottom of your screen, and it's probably way to the left, you've got a thing that looks like a hammer, and it's got like a blue background on it. If you single click that, that should start up Xcode. That's your IDE, or your integrated development environment. All right, so that's the first thing that you want to do. So I will do the same. All right. Mine, I guess, is in the middle, but that's fine. So, and these things are really hinky. Sometimes when I single click it, that's what I get is a little bouncy thing. Sometimes when I double click it, it bounces like crazy. I don't know. All right. But I'm hoping, I double clicked it, I'm hoping it opens up now. There you go. So you guys are running version what, John? 8, 7?
Xcode is 7.
7? Okay, see, I've got 6. Because the one that I've got is what we used last spring. I'm also running an older version of the operating system. But again, that shouldn't matter. What I do and what you do should look identical. All right. So if you look in here, and I'm just going to very, very quickly, what we did last time too, what we did last week on the first day, is we went in and we did getting started with a playground. I don't want you to do that. But if you click the getting started with a playground, what it does is it kind of brings up, for lack of better words, a scratch pad for you. It's literally, your screen looks like this. If you imagine that your screen is kind of broken in two, and on the left-hand side it says import UI kit, and then it has var str equals, I don't know, like Swift is fun or something like that. All right? And then on the right-hand side of your screen, you get the output from where you put over what you put over here. So it says Swift is fun. So what you can do in a playground is you can write almost any code that you want to write in the language. You can literally do the equivalent of almost making an app in a playground, but you can't run a playground. So that's why I said it's like a scratch pad for you. So we did a few things. We created some variables, and we did stuff like var x equal 10, var y equal 20, var z equals x plus y. And then you saw over here 10, 20, and 30. Okay? Just a couple things. Again, this is more for those of you who were not here last time. All right? Notice no semicolons. They're gone now. You can use them. The recommendation is that you don't. This language has been optimized up the wazoo. So there's things that you used to do that you don't have to do anymore. If you decide you want to put on the same line var x equal 10 and var y equal 20, then you need a semicolon. That's about the only time you actually need a semicolon. All right. Also notice here, var x, var y, we didn't give them types. All right, that's called type inference. The system can figure out what your type is based on the value that you put to the right of the equal sign. If you still want to put a type in there, you can say var str, oops, that's str, colon, string, equals, Swift is fun. That will work also. Or var x, colon, int, equal 10. You can do that. All right? They recommend, they meaning the people who wrote the language, that you don't even do that. You let the system figure out what your type is all the time. So that's one big thing, no semicolons. And it's in many ways, to me at least, it looks kind of JavaScript-ish. You know, you use var and you've got the name of a variable, all right? But once you do this, unlike JavaScript, I mean, in JavaScript, I can say this, var x equals Jeff. Then on the next line, I can say x equal 27. You cannot do that in Swift. Once you put that in there and the system has inferred the type of data it is, you can't change the type. You can change the value, but you can't change the type. All right? Another thing is, let's say that I was going to create a constant. All right? So I wanted to create a constant named pi. We're used to saying stuff like this, like const pi equals 3.14159 or something like that. All right? Now, you use var for variables, you use the word let for constants. So if I say let, and the recommendation again is don't even make them uppercase. You can if you want to. All right, but that's considered now to be old school. So now it's let pi equals 3.14159. And now after I've done that, now the system says you can't change that value of pi. It can never again appear on the left-hand side of an equal sign while the program's running. Does all that make sense? That should all basically be review for everybody. All right? So we did that with the playgrounds, but what we want to choose is start a new Xcode project. So choose that one and click. And again, your screen might end up looking a little bit different than mine. If it does, don't worry about it. Yours looks the way it should look. Mine looks the way it does if you're just a little bit, if you're in the slow class. Okay? Because that's where I guess I am. So, like I said, yours probably looks very similar to this, but maybe not identical. But at least I think it looks pretty much the same. What we're going to do 100% of the time in here is we're going to make sure iOS is chosen and application is chosen. And that's what came up here by default. In most of the programs, all the ones we do this semester and many of the ones we'll do next semester, you'll choose single view application. That's the one I want you to choose right now. So make sure that's highlighted. All right. And you see the blue around it, like I have up here, and then click Next. All right. Then we're asked a bunch of information here. The product name, the organization name, the organization identifier, the language, and the devices. All right. Again, you might have more stuff here on yours that says create unit tests and create UI tests. I'll have that once I upgrade. Yes. You've already done this. So the product name, we're writing a program that's called HelloWorld. So that's what I'm going to call it. Again, I would suggest that when you do this, run words together, but do not put any blank spaces in there. But you can. This name right here, in fact, I guess we could. That name is the name that we would give if we were submitting that project to the App Store. Does that make sense? You can try to submit a Hello World. My guess is there's already been plenty. But for those of you who think, well, this is like joke anyway. I don't know who'd ever buy this stuff. I don't know if you heard this, but when these first came out, somebody wrote an app that was called Steam, and you could breathe on your iPhone or on your iPad, and it made it look like it was foggy. Okay, the guy made $100,000 in the first month. So don't think there aren't people out there who will buy this stuff, because there are. All right. So I'm going to call my Hello World. Now the organization name, again, you can put in virtually anything you want. The suggestion by Mac is that if you don't know what to put in, you type in edu.self, which means that you're doing it for educational purposes and you're doing it for yourself. In other words, you're not doing it so that you can submit it to the App Store. All right, so that's what I'm going to call mine. Yes?
Shouldn't that be on the next line down?
You're right. Thank you. Well, I guess it doesn't matter here what we put in. What was it, Blackhawk?
Yeah.
Blackhawk Technical College. Yeah, John's right. I'm wrong. Bless you. All right, so this I'm going to change. The organization identifier I'm going to change to edu.self. And notice, bless you. Notice that when you do this, how it put in edu.self, all right, .hello-world. All right, it automatically puts that in there for you because when you're saving, this is an internal file that gets saved. And it can't have a blank space in it because it would just screw up the system. So it replaces, all right, the blank spaces with hyphens. All right, again, we could have run it together too. It doesn't matter. All right. Now, as far as the rest of the stuff that's on here, we want it to say Swift, but if you look here, what you'll notice, come on, is the other thing that we have here is Objective-C. That's the old way these things were done. And I said this to people last week, I'm saying it to you again, and that is you should be glad we're using Swift. Because Objective-C, everything in Objective-C was a pointer. Literally everything. You had asterisks all over the place. In Swift, pointers work behind the scenes. You never see an asterisk unless you're doing multiplication. All right, so it's much easier to work with. The other thing I mentioned last week too is what Mac has decided to do, or Apple has decided to do, is they have now made Swift is now going to be open source, which means that the prediction is within 1 to 2 years, you'll be able to write Android apps in Swift. All right, and there will actually, I'm sure that even Android Studio will put something in there where that it'll work with it. All right, and the advantage of that is that if it's a year from now and and I'm here and all that stuff is available and I'm teaching the class, now there's only one language you have to be teaching. All right. Again, you might say, well, that's a good thing or a bad thing, but to me, it's going to be a good thing. All right. So we want to make sure that Swift is the one that's chosen, and that is the one now by default. And then under here, you probably, do you have iPhone, iPad Universal, or just iPad or iPhone Universal? Do you have 2 choices or 3? Three. All right. I've only got 2 here. No, I got 3. And it's the same thing. If you want it just for the iPad, you choose that. Just for the iPhone, you choose that. And if you want it for both, you choose that. A real big thing that happened a few versions ago in this language is in the past when you chose universal like that, what you had to do was you had to create different storyboards for the iPhone as opposed to the iPad. And what's a storyboard? You're going to see that in just a minute, but that's your drawing surface where you put all your tools and the like on it. All right, but now you have one universal storyboard. And I will tell you right now, we're going to do some stuff today that's going to look a little weird compared to languages you've used before. Such as, if this is let's say this is your screen. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff here. So I've just got your typical screen. And let's just suppose, for example, that on your screen, you've got a label, and you've got a text box here, and you've got a button. All right? What Swift does more than any other language of its kind is it totally adheres to what's called the Model View Controller Architecture. All right? If you don't know what that means, we're going to start to get into that today. But the bottom line is this. Either over here on your screen or up here on your screen, you're going to have to literally, and you can all look at this, you're going to be clicking here. So you're going to be highlighting that, holding down, and literally either dragging here or dragging here. Because that's how you're going to end up making connections to the different parts of your code. It's different than any other language that I've ever worked with. All right? So I'm just going to choose iPhone. That's fine. If you did the other one and you chose Universal or whatever, it doesn't matter. Now you'll notice that mine, I don't know why it's checked, that use core data is going to be left unchecked. All right, and the other 2 that are in there that say create, user tests or UI tests, make sure those are all unchecked. What those are is the first one there that says core data, that's a way of dealing with databases. And it's not even the only way, but it's a way of dealing with databases. We're not working with databases yet, so we don't care about core data. With core data, by checking that, what it does is it adds some more folders to your project and some more stuff so that you're able to work with it. But it bloats the project in our case because with Hello World, we'll have a bunch of folders and stuff out there we don't need. Same thing with the user tests and the UI tests. If we were going to be doing those kind of tests, we'd check that. But since we're not going to check any of those. All right? So click Next again. And now it's asking you where you want to save this. My recommendation is that everything that you do in here, you save off to the desktop. So if you look over here, you've got it almost kind of looks like Explorer. So if you click Desktop there, all right, so if I click Desktop and then I click Create, ideally at least, that's where it's going to create it. Now, you're going to see something on my screen that's going to look different than yours. See this thing? No signing identity found? I mentioned that to you guys the other day. I can't get that to leave my machine. I brought it over to two guys who work and they're Apple programmers. They couldn't get it. One guy was laughing. He said, well, you finally stumped me. So I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. But it has something to do with when I set my system up. There was some weird setting that I either agreed to or didn't agree to. So now I can't get rid of that. I've clicked the fix issue. I've gone through all their steps. And it says issue resolved. Then you come back in and the same thing is still there. So it's something I've learned to live with over time. All right? So you shouldn't have that, and that's a good thing. Now, as far as this screen right here, this literally is the equivalent of one of the files that's in here that's called p.list. And what it shows you, that bundle identifier, the version, and again, your version might say 2, and that's okay because I haven't upgraded. The first build, this is if you're working with a team and we're not. This is what we're deploying it on. Again, yours might be different, the type of device, etc. All right? And if you notice in here, this is the only thing that really matters. If you create an app and you want it to be landscape only, you'd uncheck that. If you wanted it to be portrait only, you would uncheck those two. By default, when you are creating an application, all right, an Apple app, when you're creating one, it is not meant to work upside down. But if you had something that you wanted to make work upside down, maybe you were doing like a flight simulator or something and you wanted the user to be able to do it when they were upside down, you could check that also. All right, so I'm just going to leave everything exactly the way it is. Okay, and now I'm going to come over here, and where it says Hello World, and I've got all this other stuff, I want to explain the stuff that's over there. All right? Again, this is all stuff that we did last time, but I'm doing it for those people who weren't here last time. You'll notice we've got appdelegate.swift, viewcontroller.swift, main storyboard. And even though it doesn't look like it, that's a folder that says images.xc assets, launch screen xib, supporting files, hello world tests, and products. Yours should look at least similar. It may not look identical. You may not have some of the folders I have. You may have other folders that I don't have. Regardless, it's okay. All right? The files that end in .swift, those are, of course, that's where we write our Swift code. All right? This right here, this main.storyboard, that's kind of the equivalent of, if you remember in C#, where we have a form on the screen and you drag controls on it, it's pretty much the same thing. All right? Like it or don't like it, though, it's clear in color, so sometimes it looks a little weird to work with. All right. This images.xc assets, that literally is where you add your images. And we'll get into that. I don't know if we will this semester, but if we don't, we will next semester. Unlike Android, which is not quite as particular, when you work with Apple, they want your images, all right, so if you've got images that are associated with your app, they want them to be a certain size. So they might say they want it to be 54 by 54, as an example. What that means is they don't want it to be 54 by 53. All right, they want it to be exactly that size. All right, and it's set up to work that way. This launch screen this is actually pronounced zib, xib. Before the days they had a storyboard file, they had what was called a zib, or sometimes some people call it a nib file. It did almost the same thing. All right, but where it says launch screen.zib, I think that's where if you wanted to put in some kind of a splash screen at the beginning, I think you can do it in there. I've never done it. These supporting files we'll get to in a bit. The tests we don't even have to worry about. The products we don't even have to worry about. But what I want to do is just to show you this, and you can do the same thing. It's not going to hurt anything. I'm first going to single click on App Delegate. And you'll notice how my screen changes a lot. This is all information, this is all code that's been written by the system for me. So virtually anytime you come in and you create a brand new single view project, like we did, you're going to have this code. All right? And notice it's appdelegate.swift. It's not helloworld.swift or anything else. Because typically you need an app delegate file like this in order to run your program. All right? The screen's got a lot of stuff on it now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the next one that says viewcontroller.swift, just because there's a lot less code in it. All right? You'll see that it isn't exactly the same, but you'll see if you look in here, we're used to comments being in green. They are. You can see that keywords are in blue, etc. And as we get going, these are different things that the compiler recognizes. View did load, did receive memory warning, etc. All right, so those aren't keywords, but those are methods that the system has looked at and it understands what they are. Okay? You'll notice that it put some stuff in here for me. Viewcontroller.swift, hello world, created by me, and it's got today's date, copyright, and this is literally, yours might not say Blackhawk Technical College, but it probably does or something like it. And literally when I set my machine up, that's what I put in there. All right, you can go in and change that, so if you buy your own machine, you don't have to have that in there. All right. As far as the stuff that's in here, this is the kind of code that you're going to be writing. This is totally object-oriented code. You see here, this says import UI kit. UI for user interface. What that says is this file should be able to use every single thing that we have in our toolbox, if we want to. Everything that's in the toolbox. All right? And this says this file is a view controller. That's why it's called view controller. And this means my class view controller inherits from a system class that's called UI view controller. So that's not your class, that's a system class. All right, so that's how you show inheritance in here. At the end of the name of your class, you put a colon and a space, and then the name of the class you're inheriting from. If I wanted to create a new thing, let's just say that I called subview controller. If I wanted to create another class, I could say class subview controller colon view controller. All right, type of thing. So view controller is a child of UI view controller. That's the whole idea. All right. Then we come in here and notice what it says. Override func view did load. Super.view did load. You should use the super now because it's used the same way here that it's used in Java. What that says is call the view did load of this. So there is some stuff that's built into the UI view controller's view did load method that gets the system ready to be run. Okay, so that's what it does. And as it says, if you've got any additional setup you want there, you can put it in there. All right. Then it says override func did receive memory warning. And the reason that that's important is, we're talking about creating apps for mobile devices. All right. I was listening yesterday. They had a thing on their gadgets, electronic gadgets on one of the home shopping things. And so I started watching it just to see what they had. And this woman was talking, and she said basically her phone is her best friend. She said that she uses her phone, literally, she figured it out, about 16 hours per day. Well, the problem with using your phone and literally being on it, watching movies, videos, whatever, is you only have a certain amount of power, a certain amount of battery and stuff in there. So what they try to do here is it tries to say, okay, if you received a memory warning or any kind of warning that either you're running out of memory or you're running out of power, you can put stuff in here where maybe you want to take your code and put it in a standby mode or you want to do something else. All right. All right. I already showed you what's over here. This is, I think this one's called your navigator pane. And that's got, again, it's very similar to what you see in something like Windows Explorer or whatever. This over here, this main thing that's right here, that's where you'll either have your code or you'll have your storyboard, or you'll have both your code and your storyboard. You say, what do you mean both? I'll show you that in just a bit. All right? And this area in here is typically all together is referred to as your utilities pane. All right? So that's the different stuff that you have in there. This will change, and it is possible for you to close any of these. So I can close this if I want to. You can take your mouse and you can put it over the stuff in there, and at least eventually, you should get a tooltip over what it is. Show the project navigator. All right, show the symbol navigator. There's a bunch of different navigators in there that you can see. All right. So if you choose any of those, what's shown right there will change. You can always get back to the main one by clicking the one way on the left. All right. So let's take a look at what's over here in this area that's right here. First thing, and we didn't even go over this last time, so this is new for everybody. But just so you know, this area down here, this area, that's the equivalent of your toolbox, right there. All right? And it starts there and it goes way down. But you may or may not be able to see it on the screen, but you should be able to see it on your own screen. That if I look at these three things that are here, and then I look and I come down here, see where I just put my mouse? I put it right here and see how it's blinking? All right. You can go and you can search in here for the tool you're looking for. You know, whatever component, whatever user interface widget or whatever you want, or you can click in that box. So if I wanted a button right now, I could either search for it or I could type button in here and it would show me any buttons would jump up right here. So there's context-sensitive help is what I'm trying to tell you. All right. But if we look up above here, you'll notice that there are 6 buttons that are up here. So let's go through them one at a time. The first one here says, show the standard editor. Okay? And you look at it, whoops, and you say, nothing changed. Because that's what's in the middle. That's the standard editor. So if you ever want to show your standard editor and it's not showing, you can click that button. All right, so that's the first thing. Second thing, if I highlight the second one, it looks like rings. That says show the assistant editor. Notice when I click, right now at least on mine, maybe yours changed, but mine didn't change. Typically when you do this, what you want, and we're going to see this in just a minute, is over here, and I guess it did change. Over here you're going to have your storyboard, and over here you're going to have your code. But when you bring up the storyboard, so when you bring that file up by default, it takes up the whole editor area. It takes up everything. It's greedy. So a lot of times what you do is you bring that file up, and then you click here, which will, again, separate your screen in two and put the storyboard on one side, and it'll put your code on the other side. All right? Okay. Next one says show the version editor. I don't even think with that. Yours is going to be different than mine because we're running a different version. All right. The other three, these are kind of the important ones. Notice the first one says hide or show the navigator. So I'm going to click it. Is that pretty obvious if you look on the screen here what's going on? All right. Because a lot of times when you're working, what you want is, okay, I want half this screen to be my storyboard. I want half this screen to be my code window because you just need a lot of room. All right, sometimes you want the whole thing to be your storyboard or the whole thing to be your code window. But by clicking that button, you can make that appear and disappear. It'll become so second nature to you after a couple days. You'll just be doing it and not even realize you're doing it. All right, the next one. Hide or show the debug area. Right now, the debug area is not showing, but if you look up on the screen here, when I click this, and if you look down at the bottom of the screen, see that? That's your debug area, right here. So I can use a print statement in my code if I want to. All right, you know how we use system.out.println in Java? You can use that the same way here. So even if you've got a GUI app, you can send stuff down to that. It's called the console window, really. All right, you can put stuff in there if you want to do that. And again, that either shows it, or if it's showing and you click it again, it hides it. All right, so those are both toggles. And then over the last one here, it says hide or show the utilities window. All right, so if I click that, you'll notice how that goes away or comes back. Okay, that was quick, and that pretty much is about where we got to last time. I think we're around that area, so I want to double check that. So we came in here, and this is much better than what I went over with you. So if you want, again, this handout is out there. It's on the P drive under the 1027 and the 11.3, I think. But this explains every single thing that's in there, and I went over it with you. Again, it's not my goal here to sit there and read from a drawing or from a PDF or read from a PowerPoint. So we click next. We went on. The author mentions here. If you look, this is on the bottom of page 2. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see it. It's in blue at the bottom of the screen. The author says, hey, there's a bunch of new code here, and you're doing things in a new way. So even if you've got experience doing this stuff, some of the stuff that's in here is going to seem a little bit different. And that's because it's a little bit different. All right? All right, and he says, familiarize yourself with the Xcode workspace. That's what I tried to do. Okay. Run your app for the first time. Everybody in here, and some of you did this last time, but you can all do this. So if I go back to my project, there's different ways of running it. But if I want to run this, first of all, if you look, can everybody see where the mouse is up in the upper left-hand corner? By default, it's got mine set to an iPhone 6. Yours might be a 6 Plus. It doesn't really matter. But you'll notice that if I click that, there are different things that I can choose. You go, there's only 3. No, there's a lot more. See that? So I can set this up for different versions of the iPhone or iPad. For now, let's just leave it where it is. So if mine says 6 and yours says 6 Plus, that's not a problem. All right. So to run it, and there's different ways of running it. The easiest way is to just click that arrow that you see right there where my mouse is. Just click right there. It's building it right now. You can see it's still doing it. It's going through the compilation process. It's looking for everything that's in there. When it comes up, it's literally going to be kind of the equivalent of an iPhone 6 just on your screen. All right, and it's not a big thing, but just so you know for terminology's sake, this is called a simulator. What we use in the next class in Android is called an emulator. All right, we do not have separate things for you to use, separate little mini iPads or whatever for you to use. So you're not able to do anything other than run it on here. So we're running everything through the simulator. There it is. Now, it didn't do much of anything because we have absolutely nothing on our screen. But you can see the size, etc. All right? And let's see. Not that it's a big thing, but you didn't see this last time. I think if I go to hardware and I go to rotate left, that's how I run it, landscape. Okay? So I can write an app and I can immediately test it out both in portrait and in landscape modes. All right? You have to literally come in and stop the simulator when it's running. The easiest way is to click on iOS Simulator and click Quit iOS Simulator, and it's gone. All right? You'll also notice if you look up here, you might get that message. You may not. It's fine. But there's also some stuff up here that says debug. All right? And there's product in here. And you can run from product run. You can do the same thing. You can also click this key right here, which is the equivalent of your control key, and click an R. That will also work. All right. And also, if you look right here, this is kind of an interesting one, because what build does is if you've made a bunch of changes to your code and you don't want to run it yet, you don't want to see it, but you want to see whether or not it's compiling cleanly, you can do a build. All right, so all that makes sense. That pretty much gets us to where everybody was in the last class. So we're going to take a break before we do. When we get back from the break, so we've run the app for the first time. And we're going to pick it up then on page 4 here, where it says designing user interfaces using storyboards. Now, according to the clock here, it's 8:55. Let's come back at 9:10, please.